Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Tasmania's 2 prospective premiers have faced off in a debate for the first time in the state election campaign. Both Rebecca White and Jeremy Rockcliffe were looking to score knockout blows with just 11 days left until voters go to the polls.
The cost of living quiz has stumped more than one politician in its time, but this was a new slant.
I'd like you both to be able to tell me what the cost of 2 litres of better milk, 1 litre of unleaded petrol and a 23,000-seat roof stadium at Quarry Point.
Capped at $375 million, and what a great opportunity to invest and grow jobs in our economy in Tasmania.
I don't think anyone believes you can do it for that much.
As the Liberal and Labor leaders faced off in debate for the first time this campaign, the stadium standoff continuing.
The deal is a good deal for Tasmania, and it delivers our decades and decades long dream of having our own AFL team in Tasmania.
Labor's still arguing it would renegotiate the AFL deal, with Blunston Arena crowds rarely reaching 10,000.
I think that we've got a bigger problem with people not fitting into our hospital than people not fitting into our stadiums.
It's an election about certainty and stability, according to Jeremy Rockcliffe, but also one triggered by his government splitting. As for what he'd do better if faced with minority again...
we were let down, and we were let down by 2 members. I accept that. But at the end of the day, it's about loyalty.
Pushed further on what he's learnt.
I operate on consensus involving the ideas and the aspirations of everyone in my team. I was let down by disloyalty.
A crowd of business leaders watched on as the conversation touched on the budget, education and salmon. Proceedings paused by protesters calling for an end to native forest logging. Outside, the battle over housing affordability continued, Labor spruiking its policy to cover a house deposit for first home buyers.
They look at the cost of what a mortgage might be, and it often is less than the rent that they're paying.
Trying to save on top of paying rent and everything else, it is difficult.
As the Liberals call copycat, their My Home shared equity scheme needing a 2% deposit.
They support our policy. It's our policy, My Home, and this house is an example of it.
Announcing more trade education in schools by expanding the Youth Build program.
Some hands-on education and learning with people who are experts in their trades.
After experiencing Youth Build, it was very clear to me that there was an opportunity for me to have a career.
Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
Meanwhile, Liberal, Labor and Greens candidates took centre stage at the Theatre Royal, outlining their policies for the arts, culture and creative sector. The pre-election forum giving Tasmanian creatives a chance to address their concerns about the industry's future.
Arts drives our economy, particularly in Tasmania. These are real jobs with real people who need real pathways. And not knowing year to year if you've got a job is not going to keep people working in our industry.
We also need to change some of the cultural attitudes towards art. Artists deserve fair pay.
The forum was supported by the Tasmanian Symphony Orchestra, which says actual dollars are needed on the ground to help organisations grow post-COVID. Tasmania will benefit from a slight boost in tax revenue in next year's GST carve-up. Figures released by the Commonwealth Grants Commission reveal Tasmania is estimated to receive $3.4 billion in GST payments. Taking into account growth in the GST pool, that's an increase of $219 million or 6.7%. Victoria was the biggest winner, receiving an extra $3.8 billion. New South Wales, on the other hand, is set to be $1.65 billion worse off. The case against a Scottsdale man accused of killing Burnie teenager Cheyenne Lee Tatnall has been delayed again. Christopher Mark Jordan briefly appearing via video link from Risdon Prison before a Launceston magistrate this afternoon. Cheyenne's family there for the appearance, which lasted less than a minute. The 14-year-old vanished in April last year, police uncovering her remains in bushland at Nabola 3 months later. The case is scheduled to return to court on May 14. The Greens are calling for more investment in youth mental health support. The party unveiling its 4-year plan to increase the number of psychologists in public schools to 50, also onboarding an additional 40 social workers.
This will go a long way to helping meet the needs of our children and young people who are incredibly precious, and we should be doing everything that we can to support them.
It's hoped the policy will reduce financial barriers and open up more services for families who would ordinarily struggle to access them. Former Liberal MP Jackie Petrusma has spoken publicly for the first time since being re-endorsed. Hoping to win her job back, she says her family's overcome the difficulties that prompted her resignation in July 2022.
Kids, said, well, we're off to university, you go and do what you do best, Mum, and we'll be right behind you.
She says she's open to serving in a cabinet position if re-elected. Tasmania is set to lead the way on timber with the launch of a nation-first wood innovation centre. The $100 million project will support groundbreaking research while working to keep up with international developments in the sector.
Planting the seeds of a more sustainable future for our timber industry. The federal government and University of Tasmania partnering to unlock wood's full potential.
Almost anything you can currently make out of fossil fuels you can make out of wood.
And according to the university, the $100 million program couldn't have come soon enough. With fears, we've fallen behind other countries.
Australia had stopped really significantly funding forest and wood product research. If this money hadn't come now, we might have lost that capability as a nation.
It may have been used in construction for thousands of years, but timber's being touted as a solution for many of our modern challenges.
We can solve the housing crisis, we can solve the carbon crisis, we can plant more trees absorbing carbon for the future.
Making wood work for Tasmanians now and into the future.
Just imagine regional hubs, manufacturing modular timber houses, maybe making a house a day.
Focused on developing new technology and products, the federal government deciding a national approach is needed.
I can't think of a better place in Australia to be establishing a world-leading research centre for the forestry industry going forward.
But the funding isn't forever. The centre has 4 years to carve out its own future.
Working out what are the income streams that come from the innovative ways in which we can be creating new kinds of wood and timber products.
Knock on wood. Annie Green, 7 Tasmania News.
Let's go to some breaking news now. Police are on the hunt for an alleged shooter following a crash in Brighton. Brianna Boylan is at the scene. And Brianna, what do we know?
Kim, it's understood a white Nissan Patrol was shot at on the corner of Ford and Brighton roads after crashing into a blue motorbike which had been travelling with a group. The motorbike riders then took off, last seen heading north on Brighton Road. Police are now searching the area for the driver, rider and vehicles involved. No injuries have been reported to police, who are now calling for any witnesses to come forward, Kim.
Certainly concerning. Thank you there, Brianna Boylan. Tascos and Colony 47 have banded together, calling on the next state government to prioritise investment in community services such as crisis accommodation and food relief.
When we see that organisations are not well funded, what that means is that they're having to make cuts, they're having to reclassify positions, and the waiting lists across Tasmania are growing.
Investing well and investing early so that we're not focused once it gets to a crisis.
Both groups say they are focused on a collaborative approach and consultation with the next Tasmanian government. Hobart is set to become a sea of purple after Hobart Council committed to one e-scooter company to service the CBD. Beam is set to introduce new models with safety upgrades, with the potential for hundreds more to hit the streets during busier times of the year.
It's a topic which has long divided the community and saw many growing pains, with this incident even leading to them being banned along Sandy Bay Road. But Hobart City Council's now made a major e-scooter commitment.
Around 47% of trips have replaced the car journey.
Beam has landed the sole permit to operate the travel devices across Hobart. Since their introduction in December 2021, riders have covered almost 1.5 million kilometres across the city.
Not only has it eliminated a lot of car journeys in Hobart, that's also taken cars off the road, which means it's freed up parking space and that's good for Hobart as well.
The company plans to offer 600 scooters, with the potential for more during busy periods like summer and dark mofo. Also announcing a new model to hit the streets with a charger, audio alerts and a seat.
New technology, a larger front wheel means that it goes over potholes or bumps in a smoother fashion. And then pedestrian shield is used to detect the road surface. It's
hoped the new additions will make riding an e-scooter more accessible. Community members requesting that footpaths and roads be smoother and rider-friendly.
Older people could find it very useful.
What with fuel being so high, I find e-scooters are just so much more convenient.
A phase out of other e-scooters will happen over coming months. Ruby Cairns, 7 Tasmania News.
The stories of thousands of convicts transported to Australia to build the economy have been given new life. A digital exhibition showcasing their involvement in the struggle for democracy.
Unveiling the truth behind Australia's convict system, Unshackled, a new exhibition showing how prisoner transportation was used to build the economy.
Courts gave the colonial administration in Australia 2 million extra working days by sentencing convicts to transportation.
Convicts are often thought of as subordinated, petty criminals. We see them as one of the great exportations of unfree labour.
Created by Raw Film and the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery in partnership with Monash University, the digital exhibit highlights recent discoveries within the UNESCO-listed convict records, showing 75,000 prisoners were shipped to Van Diemen's Land.
For many of those individuals, we can now follow them from cradle to grave. And so we know where they were born and we know where they died, and we know every time that they were charged or punished.
Political prisoners, a major focus of the exhibition, which uses physical archives, short documentaries and AI-generated videos to tell their stories.
The scenes enacted at the triangles were the most revolting. 24 lashes, which was considered a light sentence.
Many of the convicts, particularly the political convicts, sacrificed their freedom and sometimes their life struggling for democratic reform.
Unshackled opens to the public tomorrow and will run until late July before embarking on a national and international tour. Brianna Boylan, 7 Tasmania News.
The Jack Jumpers are back in Perth tonight after forcing a third semi-final play-off and a huge home court win. Majuk Dang on fire and Milton Doyle helping spark a Tasmanian resurgence, leaving the stunned Wildcats to lick their wounds.
No rest for the victors. The Jackies load onto the first flight out of Hobart this morning with little time to prepare for a decisive third playoff in Perth tomorrow night after using the boisterous home crowd to their full advantage.
Can't really hear anything on the court, trying to yell at guys to get in position or run plays, and you can't really hear anything. So that's always great because it messes with the other team and you see the frustration.
Bryce Cotton wasn't allowing himself to be contained 2 games in a row, landing 26 points.
He's going to do what he's going to do. It's just the other guys that can chip in there and really hurt you at the end of the day, and you just have to be sound across the board.
But the Jackies' display of depth was one thing the visitors couldn't match, with suspended Marcus Lee confined to selfie duty, player of the match Milton Doyle leading the way and pocketing 24 points of his own. Jack McVeigh 22 and recently recovered Majuk Dang 18 in 16 minutes on court.
We have a lot of guys that allow us to function, but I thought Majuk Dang was, a huge factor tonight. Super proud of him because I saw the rehab and all the work he did to try to be ready if his number was called.
From 10 points down in the third quarter, a steamrolling run of play had momentum well and truly swinging in the Jackies' favour. The outcome seeming certain by the fourth, the Wildcats almost spectators with Tasmania firmly in control.
The season was on the line and they stepped up, and we got to be ready to do the same when we go back to Perth.
A 3,000-kilometre trip to fight for a spot in the Championship Series.
Will we win?
Meanwhile, it was a bad day to be a set of bales at Blunsdon Arena as the Shield bloodbath continues. Matthew Wade sent packing on the first ball of the day, Gabe Bell a short time later. The Redbacks tearing through Tasmania's order in less than 2 hours. Jack Doran top scoring at 52 with the hosts avoiding a follow-on by one
Jack
run.
Doran's out. Goodness me. They're all out for 123.
South Australian wickets falling at a rate of knots as well, but they were keeping the runs ticking over. All out for 175 thanks to some acrobatics from Ian Carlisle, leaving Tasmania with the almost unthinkable challenge of chasing 324 runs. Matthew Wade dismissed again, this time the third over, leading their hopes of a home final on shaky ground.
We've seen this wicket flatten out over the last, couple of games here on day 3 and day 4, so I think for us it's try and get through that new ball.
Tasmania 1 for 8 at stumps. All eyes will be on 2 Tasmanian AFL draftees this weekend, handed the rare honour of making first-round debuts. Colby McKercher handed his Roos Guernsey today, while the Bulldogs coach heaps praise on McKercher's former Devils teammate, Riley Sanders.
It's not often you hear a coach make a call like this, especially about a player with only 2 practice matches under his belt.
In a significant way, well ahead of any first-year players that I've ever seen come through our football club. Probably is. It's a pleasant surprise.
Riley Sanders adding more bark to the Dogs' bite, a dream round 1 debut all but locked in. The Roos next generation will step into the spotlight with prize picks Colby McKercher.
We'll be all behind you, and Tassie will be behind you as well, mate, so well done.
Good evening. Hobart recorded 20 today. Launceston and Devonport our high around the state with 28 degrees and Burnie 25. Temperatures in the south down on average, while in the north some were up to 7 above the norm. Lowhead, Scottsdale and Sheffield 26, Flinders Island 23, Friendly Beaches 22, King Island 20, Strawn 19. A cloud band did move over Bass Strait today with lingering cloud over the northeast of Tasmania and through the southwest. A mid-level cloud band extends from southern WA over the Bight to Victoria. Meanwhile, most of the rest of the cloud is over the northern half of the continent. Tomorrow, a trough loiters over Bass Strait with high centres to the east and west. The monsoon trough continues over the far north. Winds southeast to southwest at 15 to 25 knots in the west and south, turning westerly over southern waters later. Lighter southwest to southerlies over the lakes. Forecast for tomorrow, Hobart a top of 20 and partly cloudy. Geeveston 21, Bothwell a high of 22, 6 overnight. 12 to 24 the temperature range for Launceston tomorrow, 22 for Devonport, partly cloudy for Cressy, 24 the maximum. Burnie 20 with a possible early shower, 40% chance there, 19 for Strawn, cloudy for Curry and 21 degrees. St Helens tomorrow a high of 20, partly cloudy for Swansea, 20 and 20 also for Orford. On Thursday a possible shower over Flinders Island and the far northeast, otherwise fine and partly cloudy. Many overnight temperatures dropping to single figures into Friday, to be followed by another partly cloudy day, and on Saturday temperatures back into the 20s for most as the prevailing conditions continue. Fine, warm and partly cloudy in Perth and Adelaide tomorrow, a shower clearing from Melbourne, warm and partly cloudy in Canberra, Sydney and Brisbane. Partly cloudy in Hobart, a coolish 14 degrees, 23 right now in Launceston and 19 in Devonport. Great to see our political leaders having a debate, Kim. Takes me right back to high school when I wanted to join the debating team, but someone talked me out of it.
Oh dear, don't worry, you and I have enough debates, I reckon you're right. That is all your news for now. We'll be back later with news breaks. Thanks for joining us. Good night, everyone.
Yes.